dog fighting.
Yeah.
And the name of the chapter is called Game.
Yeah.
And the dog fighting culture, you do a very good job explaining that the Brazilians in particular, I believe that's where you were when you're doing all the dog fighting.
Some of it was there, yeah. Some was in the Philippines.
Like these guys, it's not like Michael Vick, they electrocute the dog and they throw him in the river. Like these dogs, they get starved, they have to cut weight like fighters.
Oh, yeah.
And you see like a starving looking pit bull.
You know.
And what really, I'm sorry, real quick.
Go ahead.
What really impressed me and something I never would have thought of was you think to yourself like pit bulls that fight, I'm not putting my hand anywhere near that dog. If the dog bites a person, it's useless.
Yeah.
The dog adores the person.
Yeah.
It's the other dog
Yeah.
that it doesn't even necessarily hate. It just has to be game. Explain game.
Well, it's very complicated. I mean, but gameness is a quality that we look for in dogs. Let me preface it by saying, you know, I was always surprised that I didn't get more shit for that chapter. Because, you know, the Michael Vick thing, and somehow it sort of slid by like a lot of people. But I have
think that's a testament to your writing and the way it's there. And you couched it with like, hey man, this is their shit.
Yeah.
This is their culture.
Well, I think the important thing, the way I think about it now and the way I try to explain it is it's cultural. So to you, a dog is something special and magical and a wonderful companion. Think about it like a farm animal. You know, if you have a farm animal that's not making you money, you don't keep your farm animal. I mean, I'm from kind of like a farming background a little bit. Like I grew up
in Peabody, Mass.
No, in Western Mass. I mean, I grew up around farmers and I've worked on farm, you know, picking corn and all that stuff. So I have a little bit less of a, you know, a precious relationship with animals. You're like, fucking kill that thing. You know what I mean? It's no good. You got to put it down. You know, I'm not going to take a dog for $5,000 worth of surgery or whatever.
Here come the tweets now.
I know.
Buddy.
Yeah, exactly. But not everyone.
Sam Sheridan.
Just so you know, these guys, to them, a dog is something about is a way to make money. It's a way to make money. And if you have an animal that's not making you money, you don't keep it anymore. I mean, Michael Vick was being a moron with the torture and the whatever. He's not a smart dog fighter. He's kind of
what I didn't know existed in the dog fighting world was at any time when you realize your dog's not going to win, you reach down and you pick it up.
Yeah.
You remove
no,
your
dogs
dog.
don't die. Dogs don't die. If dogs are dying, it's idiots fighting dogs.
That's what you make very clear.
That's thugs. That's what Michael Vick and those guys are thugs. Like, they don't really know what they're doing. They don't have good dogs. They're fighting way too big dogs. Like, they're fighting dogs that look cool. You
like
know
a
what I mean?
Rottweiler versus a pit bull.
Yeah, it's retarded. You know what I mean? And you talk about being people aggressive. Pit bulls are not people. I mean, game meat pit bulls aren't people aggressive. They're actually terrible guard dogs because when you have a dog fight, which is in a 12 or 16 foot little pit, you'd be amazed at how close the handlers and there's three guys in there with the two dogs. There's two handlers and a ref. They are within inches of these dogs fighting. Within inches, like,
and the dog,
like crouched down and holding, almost pointing where they want them to bite. And if that dog ever bit a person, they would be instantly killed. So, and if your dog
seems to be
turns,
a real love.
Oh, they love
between the dog and the dog owner. And the Western world knows about the Michael Vick stuff. Like, they were electrocuting them, they were drowning them, they were slamming them against the hoods of cars. But when you were in the Philippines and when you were in Brazil, like, these guys sleep with their dogs the night before a fight. Like, they are like how I feel about my teacup Yorkie. This guy's laying in bed with his girl pit bull that just made weight.
Right. Well, and we can be cruel to what we love. That's certainly possible, and people do it all the time.
It's the same to me. The way you wrote about it, it would be like being a stage parent.
Yeah.
Like, I love my daughter so much, I'm going to make her go out there and fucking dance and audition for shit.
Your kid's a gymnast, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
She loves going to practice 5 days a week for 6 hours a day.
Everyone likes to get up when it's dark out to play hockey.
But it's not quite, listen, it's a little bit like the abortion debate, and then I have my personal feelings and I have my public feelings, which is, so.
Really, abortion and dogfighting are just neck and neck on the campaign trail.
There's a lot of problems.
Right.
But it's just like, it makes me sad when I see the dogs and I'm with them because those dogs are so
I never knew
personal.
You could pick a dog up and just be done with it. And it's the owner's pride that makes his dog keep going.
Well, not necessarily. It's when the dog turns. So the dogs are fighting. They're going head to head, and you have to, you start. When one of them turns or whimpers...
You mean literally turns in another direction?
A little bit and doesn't engage, which might take an hour or 2 hours.
I was stunned at how long these fights were.
It goes on forever.
I thought a dog fight was like 4 minutes.
Weird.
When you thought?
It's so weird. Cockfights are really short. Dog fights are pretty long. Especially because these dogs are in shape. But, and there's money involved. There's, $30,000 involved. These dogs in shape now. You know what I mean? Everybody's got their P's and Q's. But, so the dog turns, occurs, whimpers. Now they pull him back and he's got to make scratch. So now he's got to.
Which is what?
You pull your dog back, I pull my dog back. There's a little line. And this is the scratch line. And you hold your dog. Say my dog turned. He whimpered. We separate him. Now I gotta let him go.
Is that an instant separation? Like those are the rules?
Pretty much instant separation.
Okay.
Yeah. They get a biting stick in there, a breaking bar, and they pop him free. It might take a minute, or if there's no action, they'll do this too. If he doesn't come across and engage, fight's over.
So they pull the dogs apart,
and he's got to engage
behind the scratch line.
Yep. And
then they let the dogs go.
Well, one dog will be held because your dog didn't cur at all. Your dog's still.
My dog's still fighting.
My dog's a little.
Your dog turned.
Iffy.
Okay.
So now I gotta, and you'll see guys who just like trying to get him to, they'll stroke their legs, but they can't touch him. And if he doesn't come off the line, fight's over.
But both dogs aren't behind the line?
Both dogs are behind the line. They're separated. One dog's being held because one dog is still game.
So only one dog gets let go. That's the dog that turned.
Yeah, and he has to make scratch.
As long as that dog keeps coming out to fight,
fight keeps going.
That's game.
That's gameness.
That's gameness.
Gameness is that quality of.
That's what gets
even if you're
that's
losing.
What gets boxers killed.
Yes, and that's basically this. The reason I went to dogs is because there's qualities we look for in fighters which are the same, which maybe we're not quite clear about. And sometimes when you look at something a little simpler, like a dog, you might say it's the. You can see something in a simpler system that is more complicated when it's the organism can't really comprehend itself, right? So it's hard sometimes to judge clearly why people do things. But you can look at animals and say, "Oh, this is very simple. I see what's going on here." And that's why there's a chapter about dogfighting in the book, because I was examining a fighter's heart. So this was a way to kind of get at part of what we admire in fighters, which is that quality of gameness. Mickey Ward, Arturo Gatti, those aren't the best fighters in the world. But their game is hell, and we love them to death. And why? Gameness. And gameness is this quality which is so ineffable,
That's someone who's not game.
Not right now.
We had Ray Mancini in the podcast, and Duk-Hoo Kim's gameness got him killed.
Yeah.
UFC, and we're rounding third here, so I wanted to touch briefly on UFC because I thought you also pretty much wrote a love letter to the art of mixed martial arts.
Yeah.
In boxing, you can dance, you can hold, you can clinch. You wrote, I'm paraphrasing, I'm not going to go back to the text because I don't want to eat up too much of your time. Human beings have been prey for thousands and thousands of years. From the sun to ants, everything on earth fucked us up and gave us trouble. And everything we did was to be less of prey. And it wasn't until the last, say, 600 years where we went, hey, why don't we all go out and fuck something else up?
Right.
So MMA in its infancy, and UFC specifically, because it's like, that's like saying football and NFL. It really is the NFL. It's the UFC. It's the only game in town. I know there are others.
No, but it is.
Strikeforce and, the other one. But UFC, Dana White has just, he's created the NFL.
Right.
You said, I want to do it justice because you're a really great writer, and I'm trying to be a nearly as good regurgitator of what you wrote. At the end of that fight, you see guys hug immediately after a UFC fight, much more than you do in boxing. And you wrote in a fighter's heart and in a fighter's mind. That's because there's an unspoken truth that never needs to be spoken. If the referee wasn't here, one of us would have died. Not maybe. One of us would have died. I was choking you.
Right.
And if you tap, the referee jumps on top and ends this. And if you don't tap, you're going to sleep for a long time, if not forever.
Right.
I snapped your arm, and you tapped so I wouldn't snap it.
Yeah.
And the reason you tapped is because if I snapped it, you won't be able to hit with it, and I'll continue to pummel you until you die. And you see that. And when you wrote that, I noticed in UFC fight, they try to drum up a little bit of trash talking here and there. But with the exception of like your Chael Sonnen
Right.
And Chael's like in the brand. He's a brand.
Yeah.
And he can fire up the Brazilians. Like he can't. I was talking to Rashad Evans yesterday on the phone.
Right.
And Chael can't go to his gym because it's 80% Brazilian.
Yeah.
They'll just jump on him and fucking try to kill him.
No, they're savages. Well, the machismo is still big. You don't talk shit. I mean, the Brazilians are always like, you betrayed me. I'll stat,
But he's saying shit like
gym.
they play with dirt because they can't afford toys.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They don't have electricity. They're
Furious.
disgusting.
Yeah.
They're uncircumcised
He's disrespecting
animals.
me. It's machismo.
But that's all because he went to sell tickets to the Anderson Silva fight.
Absolutely.
But in UFC, there really isn't that much trash talking. They try to drum it up to sell tickets. But I don't think the trash talking works because of the inherent that you write about, the inherent almost adoration of one another's skill set and respect for discipline of one another.
Right.
Is that safe to say?
Well, you're actually combining a couple things, but
well, I said we didn't have a lot of time.
I know. Where to begin?
We could just come back and I could do a 3-part where I just read the book.
Well, the first thing was Barbara Ehrenreich wrote a book called Blood Rights, which is a tremendous book about kind of how war became sacred, and she's the one who really kind of put me onto this idea, which is our universal experience is prey. Which is we were preyed upon. Like you think about what were the religions before Christianity? They had meat sacrifices. You gave meat to something that was carnivorous. Which comes out of this like universal memory of
gods are always hungry,
being preyed on by the bear. You know what I mean? When you're a little ape, in the primate groups. And to some extent, I think all sports and all victory, that euphoric feeling is a little bit about, hey, we're not going to get eaten today. The other guy's getting eaten, not me. And certainly fighting. When you talk about MMA, I mean, boxing. There's a lot of as soon as you bring martial arts in the picture, you're like, well, I would just do this or I would just do that. He's just boxing. MMA, the idea sort of behind it was that there is no more place to hide in a rule. Like, you can do whatever you want, so let's find out. If there is no rules, of course there's 30, 50 rules, whatever, but
you can't headbutt, you can't eye gouge,
you can't fish hook, you can't bite him. But
unless you're having sex, fish hooks, it depends on the partner.
Yeah, it depends on who's into it. Well, I think Randy Couture said an MMA fight's like a one-night stand. It's a lot of body and fluids exchanged, and you get to know somebody kind of really well in a really weird way.
For 15
Yeah, something like that.
That's funny.
Which there is that intimacy to it. There is this, and but so anyway, yeah. That's sort of the subtext is that you'd be dead and I would have killed you, and it's about will. It's really about when a fighter says I'm willing to die. I'm in there we don't like that because we want to see somebody die for money. What we're seeing is this guy has a principle. He's saying he's going to die before he's mastered, before he loses self-control. When you're knocked out, I can do whatever the fuck I want to your body. When when I choke you out, when I break your arm, when I break your other arm, now I get to do whatever I want. So you've lost will. You've lost your agency. And the fight is kind of about that. And that's kind of, I think, what we admire and what we love about those guys who are, I'm willing to die rather than give up my agency, which is something wonderful, which is something kind of magical.
And extraordinary. And goes against the actual human makeup, which is one of survival, to keep procreating and stay alive as a species, to be able to willing to go unconscious in front of 16,000 screaming people in San Jose that are drunk wearing affliction shirts.
Right.
The smart bet is, you know what? I like my arm. I'm going to tap.
Yeah. Well, it's just that's I think it's actually more natural than you think. And Dostoevsky wrote about men that take a long dive into action they know is going to hurt them because it's about having their free will. And it's that fuck it. Like, hey, fuck it, man, fuck it. That's what that's about. It's like, hey, I know this is a bad idea. I know this is going to suck. There's a lot of work
that goes into that fuck it.
But yeah,
more work than anyone in this room knows.
Well, absolutely, and that's where I think the respect comes in, and even for the Chael Sonnens and the hugs afterwards is nobody in that whole arena is got any inkling of what you've gone through except for that guy that you've just been fighting. He's gone through the same shit to get here. He agreed to meet you here. He served as your test. You know, he met you. He abided by these rules. You guys like really served.
It's gladiator shit.
You really served each other. You know, you did something for each other. You agreed to help each other, and that's, I think, part of that respect, and also just feels I think it feels great to be done with hostility. You know, when anger fades, there's a euphoric release. I mean, God, I can't remember who it was, but you know, it was Joe Frazier, one of those guys, said, you know, just the moments after being knocked out is the happiest moments of my life, you know, for seconds. And then, of course, all the shit hits of all the bad stuff that happened. Oh, no, it was